Hi, this is Randall Schwartz, host of Floss Weekly. This week, Gareth Greenaway joins me. We're going to be talking about Opsview, the way to monitor a few hosts or a few 100,000 hosts. You're not going to want to miss this, so stay tuned.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Floss Weekly is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Floss Weekly with Randall Schwartz and Gareth Greenaway. Episode 260, recorded August 7th, 2013. Opsview. It's time for Floss Weekly, the show about free, libre, open source software. I'm your host, Randall Schwartz, Merlin at Stonehenge.com, bringing you as often as I can each week, or as close as we can anyway, the movers, the shakers, the big projects, the little projects, the projects you might not have heard of before, the projects you may be using every day and not even aware of it. This week is no exception, but first let me bring on our co-host for his second time co-hosting, Gareth Greenaway. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Randall. Glad to be back.
And yeah, obviously you did okay last time because here you are back again.
Yeah,
you've graduated into being one of our rotating panel of co-hosts. Co-rotating, yeah, I guess it's the right set of words. Okay, so we have a really interesting show this week. We have Opsview. Opsview is, from what I can tell, it sort of started out as just a bunch of extensions to the Nagios core. We've had Nagios. You have Nagios on the show before? My God, I can't remember. We've had so many people on this show. It's been years. Okay, so. But Nagios is a monitoring system. So basically, if you have anything from a small cluster of machines to a full big enterprise system, you need to make sure that everything's up and running, and also to see if the disks are full and things like that. You set up a system like Nagios to monitor this. And Opsview looks to me like sort of a super Nagios. It does even more things, has more things graphically oriented. I know with Nagios, you got to do a lot of stuff by going into config files and stuff, and I always found that annoying. In fact, I currently have a Nagios cluster on my set of machines here. So what do you know about Opsview, Gareth?
just nothing more than what you said. I know, like you said, it started off as like I believe like a fork of Nagios, kind of like add-ons to Nagios, and then from there it's grown into its own kind of entity. But I have not looked at it too extensively. But okay. I'm anxious to learn about it from Ton.
Well, we should bring on an expert on this then. Let's go ahead and bring on our guest, Ton Voon. Let's bring him on. Hi, Ton.
Hello.
Hey, so where are you speaking to us from?
I'm phoning you from Belper, which is in the UK. It's around Derbyshire. It's just on the edge of the Peak District. Lovely area, so I get to work from home. But the offices are down in Reading, and we have another set of offices in Boston, USA as well.
Well, the only place you mentioned that I'm aware of is Boston. I don't know where the rest of those places are. Sorry about that. If we had one of our two UK co-hosts on, we could probably get precise geolocal coordinates, but that's okay. So, I kind of stumbled there on my definition of Opsview. Why don't you go ahead and give us a 30,000-foot view? What is Opsview and what problem does it solve?
Well, Opsview is open source monitoring software. It is based on Nagios, as you say, because we're big fans of Nagios and we use that, but there are some limitations in how it works. So the main thing is that we run what we call Opsview Web, which is the main part, which is the web stack. It's a three-tiered application. So we have Apache on the top level. We've got a Catalyst web server in the middle, which handles all the dynamic pages. And then we back everything with a MySQL database in the back end.
Yeah, I was pretty excited. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so we distribute it via packages. So we support 16 platforms, which is 8 distributions plus the 32 and 64-bit variants of those, and then we test it all on 6 different browsers as well. So, it works across all those different platforms.
I was pretty excited actually. I was looking through the notes and said that it was developed using Perl and Catalyst. I think the original Nagios was Perl, right? But what made you choose Catalyst?
No, the Nagios is actually based in C, and all the code is in C as well. We chose Catalyst because it was originally started out as just a set of Perl CGI scripts. The founder of Opsview, James Peel, he was writing a whole bunch of CGIs that were in Perl, and then we decided that we needed to change it into a proper web framework, and that's when we decided to use Catalyst. And we actually got Shadowcat, one of the leading experts in Catalyst, to help bootstrap the application for us. So they started it off, and we've been developing on it ever since.
So what was the motivation to get this started? You sort of got into that in history already, but what started the project, and how has it developed since then?
Yeah, well, we come from lots of different backgrounds. I mean, I used Nagios in my previous job as well. But the one issue that everyone has with Nagios is that, you can't do the configuration files. It's all done through text files. So what we wanted to do was try to make it much easier in terms of a web interface to do that type of configuration. So that it just kind of reduces the learning curve that you need to do for that as well. One thing we tried to do with the configuration as well is that we try to do the we think a lot around the mental model about how you want to do configuration, because we've looked at some of the other configuration type GUIs that are available for Nagios already, and they're really just like thin layers on top of the configuration files. And what we wanted to do was, in the database, we were going to hold things in tables, and so you can set up configuration really easily like that. Because what we find is that people actually think in a database table kind of way. So what we have is a table that represents hosts, so you can get your list of hosts. You can get a list of what we call service checks, which is the definitions of everything that you want to check and how you want to check it, how frequently, that kind of thing. So then it really becomes just a case of just ticking stuff that you want for this host. I want to check these things on it as well.
What are the kinds of things I can check? Go ahead, sorry.
Well, since we use Nagios, we can use all the Nagios plugins as well. So we execute loads of things from really simple kind of ping checks, from all the TCP kind of port checking type things, to really complex stuff like if you want to do web transactions as well. One of our customers, they wanted us to check their site. They run an online gambling site. And what we did was wrote a little plugin that basically just logs into the application, then grabs the amount of money that they have left in their account, and then run an alert if it's below a certain threshold. So that instead of just checking something as basic as, whether web server's up or not, whether the host is available, we're kind of doing something that kind of goes over the entire stack, really.
Cool. And so it is actually using Nagios underneath. So does it have to convert some of those tables into does it have to convert some of those tables into the actual original Nagios format files?
That's right. Yep. We store all the configuration information in our database, and then what we do is what we call the reload process, which then takes the information that's in there, does loads of manipulation on it, works out which people are meant to get alerted, works out which things people are allowed to look at, because we're very hot on security, so we're trying to get a subset of the list of things that you can see as well based on different people, set up all the notification parameters that you may need to do, and then we spit out at the end a set of Nagios configuration files. And then at that point, we signal for Nagios to read that and then continue its monitoring. But also at the same time, we also do other stuff as well. So we include some MRTG type information. So if you just tick the box that says you want it monitored by MRTG, then it will set up all the MRTG configuration files at the same time as well.
Cool. And so this is all really primarily a web-based interface. So when I download this thing and install it somehow, install from the packages, I'm presented with a series of web forms to basically say, here's my hosts, here's the services I want to monitor under those hosts, here's some of the parameters maybe to log into the databases and stuff. So it's basically web interaction, right?
Correct. Yep. I mean, the other things that we do is also provide the user interface on the status views as well, because not only do you need to be able to configure everything, which we think we do a great job on, but you also want to be able to get a high-level view of the information. And we have two main views that we have in Opsview. First one is what we call host group hierarchy, because instead of just kind of having things in a flat structure, we actually provide a hierarchical view of all the hosts. So you can kind of design this hierarchy however you want to split it. Some people split it based on geographic locations, or you could split it based on whether these are production tests or development servers. But then you've got a high-level view, and you can just drill down to get that further information. But what's really nice is that everything's represented only once. So if there is a single failure of some sort, you only get a signal once for something that you need to investigate. And the other thing that we have in host group hierarchy is this concept of handled and unhandled issues as well. So unhandled issues are new things that have come in, things that you don't know about yet. But we have this concept of handled, which means that either it's something that I already know about and is planned to have an outage. So in that case, you would set some downtime. You'd say that this server is going to go offline, so I'm going to set it offline for 3 hours or so. So if there's any failures, it's automatically handled. Or it could be an unexpected failure, in which case you'd mark an acknowledgement against it just to say that Randall's looking at this problem because the disk is full at the moment, so no one else needs to worry about this one.
And so it sounds like it might have a pretty steep learning curve then. Can I get started just monitoring a few services to start with?
Yeah. We've got two easy ways of getting to the system. You can either have a virtual machine that you can just run in VMware or any other virtualization software. And we also have an EC2 instance that you can run up as well if you want to check some servers remotely as well. So, we set it up. We set up the Opsview host itself because that's the only thing that we know about. So there'll be lots of monitoring that is happening on the Opsview server itself as soon as you start up. But then you can just start adding in hosts. You just need to then just tick each particular thing that you want checked against it. Maybe, add in a new router. It's got some interfaces, so let's tick the interface check one. And maybe it's running DNS as well, so tick for the DNS check as well. So, it's really easy to just add in new hosts and just start monitoring new things.
And is it similar to Nagios, and that I have to install some sort of Nagios remote execution thing, or is that only for certain kinds of checks?
Yeah, only for certain kind of checks. If you're checking something on the other end that requires you to have access to that, then we have something called the Opsview agent that you install on the other end. So then that handles all the stuff that happens remotely, such as disk checks, CPU checks, memory, those kind of hardware type things. Otherwise, if it's network-based stuff, then you can just do it from the Opsview server itself. We also support communication via SNMP as well, so we can talk to an SNMP device. You have to obviously put in the credential information, but then it can grab off information about how many interfaces they have, and then we actually present you with a web page that lists you all the interfaces, and then you can just tick which ones you want and set thresholds on a per interface level to get alerted on.
So Opsview is an open source monitoring solution, but it's also a commercial company, right?
Correct, yes. So we do sell a commercial offering as well, which is the Opsview Pro for less than 100 hosts that you want to monitor. Or we have Opsview Enterprise if you want to scale up further than that. So, those are our commercial offerings.
Okay. What's been the greatest challenge you guys have faced, being that you're an open source project, but you're also a commercial entity?
The greatest challenge is probably trying to foster an open source community, I think. Trying to react quickly enough to features and requests and ideas that people have, and being able to roll that out, because we only have a limited development capacity. So it's kind of hard. Sometimes we have to balance what we do in the open source product as well as what's in the enterprise product. But we do keep releasing new versions of Opsview Core as we go along, because it's really important that we have a testing bed for the new stuff that is coming along, and also testing various tweaks, really. I mean, I say we support SNMP, but SNMP stands for Simple Network Management Protocol. But I find it's anything but simple, and vendors just seem to keep changing what some of these things mean as well. So sometimes what we find is we make a change, we try to fix one thing, and then it ends up breaking somewhere else. So we really value the community, and when they can try these out and try to respond quickly to issues that they also have on their esoteric devices.
So is how far has Opsview kind of moved away from the Nagios platform at this point?
We still use Nagios as the core monitoring side. We are trying new ways of the visualization side. I think Nagios is fantastic at just doing all the regular checking, getting all that information, because at its heart Nagios is really just a monitoring, scheduling engine that is saying I want to check something, I want to run this every 5 minutes. If it changes state, then send an email off to this person or send an SMS off to this other person. So we still use that, and we still actively work with the community and provide back patches and bug fixes and feature enhancements to Nagios. And in return, we also pull back some of those changes as well. So Nagios 4 is currently in development. I believe it's going to be released soon. But we've been working with that code since December or so, and we've been finding various issues, and we've been pushing those back upstream and trying to get some new features added in there as well, and had discussions with developers about how to make some changes that Opsview specifically needs.
As far as like the sharing of patches and code and design, is it kind of pretty much a two-way street, or is it that was the question I was going for.
Yes, I think so. We are very keen on getting our stuff back upstream because it benefits everyone if Nagios gets better and better. So what we actually do is that the GPL says that you have to make all your source for third-party code, for all GPL code to be available to your users. But we actually go further than that. We put our whole Subversion repository related to our third-party project, and that is available on the internet. There's no authentication or anything required on that. You can see all the changes that we make to that as we make commits. And in fact, what we do is we take the Nagios code, the tar files that they have, and we apply a whole set of patches to that based on things that we want to put in Opsview, some improvements that we make on our end, or things that customers want. And every so often we try to push those back upstream. So we actually released a blog post yesterday talking about a whole bunch of changes that we make for Opsview, and I think it's currently being evaluated by the Nagios developers if they want to put that back in upstream.
That's awesome. Are there any pieces of Opsview that are not open source, that people don't have access to the source?
For Opsview Core, that is all completely open source. We GPL all of our code involved in that. So, I mean, we include catalysts, as you've heard. So what we do is we build all the Perl modules that we need for Opsview to run, and we install that separately. And so there's a whole directory which is just full of Perl libraries. So those, again, are just third-party code. But all the Opsview code that comes with Opsview Core is under the GPL. We do change the copyright and the license. It's the same copyright, but we do change the license for the Opsview commercial because that's our commercial offering. So there's some additional code that's involved there, but that's because that's our commercial offering. So everything in Open Opsview Core is GPL'd.
So have you effectively forked Catalyst then, or you got your own versions of those modules?
We haven't forked. What we do is that we have what we call Opsview Perl, which is our package that contains all the Perl modules. And we just have a whole set of tarballs, which are every single Perl module that we use, and we then build that regularly. As soon as there's a new commit in that branch, then we just build that and build all the Perl modules required. Again, there are patches that are applied to that, but we have been pushing those back upstream. So what we do is every 2 years or so, we just update all the Perl modules with the latest ones from CPAN, see what's broken, see what still works, and then tweak code appropriately. So we try to keep up to date. We're not really forking Catalyst at all. I think we're kind of more just using the Catalyst. We're trying to keep to as much as possible. In fact, I think I'm personally listed on the Catalyst contributors list as well, because I think when we were working on our REST API, we found a few bugs and security issues around that. So we've been working with the community on that one as well.
So if you're using the system Perl that's built in, you must add something to the lib path when you install your packages, or do you have potential conflicts?
No, it's a bit tricky what we're doing. We kind of use system Perl, but we have our whole set of our libraries. So the libraries that we choose, we just change the lib path in there, and then it picks up all our libraries rather than the system level ones. Okay,
well, I guess that sort of works when you put it together that way. And as you were talking about these different levels of commercial offerings and open source offerings, how would you distinguish the biggest feature differences? I mean, why would I pay more for commercial besides just support?
We've introduced quite a few extra features in the enterprise one recently. Dashboard is a new application, web application. It's written in EXT.js, and what that does is it's getting all the information from your Opsview core system, and it's just grabbing that back and just listing the host group information, listing specific graphs that you may want to see on performance statistics, and also just allowing you to change between all those different views. And we also set it up so that you can automatically rotate between all these different dashboards as well, so then you can see a different view of your estate. The other key features are that we introduce Opsview reporting module, so that you can then run reports against your availability information or your performance information. And there's distributed monitoring as well, so that you can set up slave systems and talk to all the different slave systems and get results back into your central Opsview master. So that's a great way for scaling out for much larger customers and everything.
Okay, and sorry, I've done this 1,000 times. That must be the delay between here and the UK. It's got to be, because I keep thinking, oh, he's done now, but he's not quite done yet. Go ahead and say what you were going to say next.
Yeah, and the two big features that we've added recently are auto discovery, so that we'll actually go out onto your system, find out all the hosts that are running there, and we'll make some best guesses in terms of what the OS is, and then you can just automatically add those into all the different host templates, and then that just start the monitoring for you really easily. So we found that that's great for just starting your monitoring system. And the other one that we've just released last week, I think it is for NetFlow analytics, to get some information about what is actually traversing through your network. Because if your router can send NetFlow data, then we can draw nice pie charts and get some graphs of the amount of throughput that's happening on your systems, so that you've got much greater visibility of what's happening in your estate.
So with that kind of a combination, it sounds like this could be like a one-stop shopping for getting everything that you need, just in terms of keeping your systems up and running and keeping performance going.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, you can easily download the Opsview Pro to give that a try out, and we can always extend that by adding extra hosts as you go along.
Can I migrate back from Pro to the open source version?
We don't test that explicitly. We do test, migrating from core up to Pro, but I don't think we regularly run tests for moving from Pro down to core. It should be possible, because we should just ignore all the extra tables and all the extra columns that may be on the database, but it's not something I can guarantee, I'm afraid.
And I saw something about the original Opsview community, and that migrating to core, you might lose some features. Is community sort of what your basis for Pro was?
Yes. So Opsview Community was a version that we had last year. About April last year. But we had to make a business decision to kind of switch to the Pro and Enterprise versions. So there were some features that had to be that got cut from the Opsview Community version. But according to our survey stats, they were only used by about 5% of our users. So we were kind of making a business decision that all the people that were using Enterprise obviously saw that of great value. So we've kind of done that once. We don't expect to do that ever again, but we will keep improving core as we're going along, and that's kind of stated by the fact that we've kind of done I think about 5 releases since then.
Sure. And how about the community development? Is there a lot of contribution to Opsview core from your community, or is it mostly just people supporting each other?
We've set up our forums, which has quite a large membership there. We do get some contributions back in terms of bug reports and features and small tweaks to the system. We have had quite a few other like translations. I think we've had some people doing those, and we've had a company called Capsaday, one of our partners, that have also contributed quite a bit of code back in as well. So there are quite a lot of people that give stuff back through the community, which is great. But I think the direction that we're kind of going with Opsview is kind of more of a simplified using. So there's probably a bit less on the contributions on the framework side of things.
Okay, and so so some of it sounds like the entire governance of what the roadmap's going to be and what features go in is entirely by Opsview employees. Is that correct?
I think we probably haven't been quite so transparent on that because it's I guess most of the investment in terms of development is happening at the Opsview end. But we do try to keep people informed. I think we're going to do a better job on that one as we go, really.
And sort of a curious question here. I'm always interested in good test-driven development. What kind of testing can you do to something that does testing?
Very good point. What we use is Hudson for our continuous integration, and we use that to test all our software is working correctly. So if you use Opsview for monitoring your infrastructure, I guess we kind of use Hudson to monitor our code, I guess. Mm-hmm. But what we do there is we've got a whole set of tests that we run. And they're all written in Perl, so we do Perl tap tests, mm-hmm. and we wrap it all up in something called tap harness JUnit, which then puts it into a format that Hudson can read so that it can display back that information in a nice graphical way in terms of success, failure, number of tests, and how many things have failed. At the moment, Opsview core is completely green, so we're really happy about that. And that runs about 6,000 tests, I think it is. And that takes about 30 minutes to run. Whereas for Opsview commercial, I think it's about 9,000 tests that we run there. But that takes like about an hour and 20 because of the extra features that we've added in.
Mm-hmm. And so how do you simulate test failures? Not test failures, but how do I put this in the right way? So how do you simulate like the web server is down when you're running the web server test?
We don't tend to test stuff at that level. Not at the unit test. We do that testing by our QA team when we're doing regression testing and making sure that those types of things work. But one thing we've kind of realized when you're doing testing is that if you're really trying to do like unit testing and mock testing, you can only really do it for your own code. So we test the whole web UI. We test that things get inserted into the database correctly. We test that the REST API is doing the correct things, returning back the right information and making the appropriate database changes. But what we don't really test are the plugin levels or Nagios core engine itself. In fact, I had committed a whole bunch of tests in the Nagios core project so that it could do far more detailed kind of testing like that to make sure that notifications were getting sent out and that state changes were occurring correctly. And I think if you are going to do that kind of testing, that has to happen in that particular part of the code stream. So because it's in Nagios, we don't necessarily own that, so we don't develop additional tests around that area. But we certainly test all the parts that Opsview are responsible for.
And how about extensions? If I have something that doesn't look like it's one of the core things that either Nagios has or you've added as an extension, what can I write extensions in, and how easy is it to integrate in the system?
So Nagios uses what is called Nagios plugins in order to do the actual checking. So that's where all the logic is to find out if a web server's down, if your database is responding quickly, if your router has too much throughput. So those Nagios plugins can be written in any language, either C. There's a whole bunch that are released with Opsview, which are C-based, and there's Perl. You can write it in Perl or Shell. Some people write it in Java. We've just released one which is about looking at Amazon CloudWatch, and that's written in Ruby. So there's you can use any particular language to do that, because the interface between Nagios and the plugins to get that information is just the return codes plus output information.
Okay, and how about white labeling? If I wanted to provide this service for my customers and wanted to have some branding on the pages that I'm showing them, is that possible?
We do allow you to switch out the logo. All the CSS is done in a separate file, so that can be changed if you want. In fact, a third of our customers are MSP providers, so they are using Opsview and reselling that onto their customers as well.
Okay, and I think we hit the license before, but what's the core license?
The Opsview core is released under GPL. So anything that we've provided there is freely available to change.
Okay, and what's on what's been the you said a bunch of things that already happened yet, so I don't ask that question again. But what's on the roadmap? Where are we going in the future with this?
For the roadmap, I think we're kind of trying to do kind of more visualizations in some of that information. I think we've got another core release in a couple of weeks as well, because I think we've made some changes to Nagios that we want to try out in the community. There's some stuff as well around the new SNMP communications and some bug fixes around there that we're wanting to have that. But the recent release that we've done for Opsview Pro and Enterprise involved a lot of access control changes and making that a lot smoother in terms of the back end side of it, as well as fixing a few bugs. So we're going to be merging that into the core release. So it kind of shows that with the multiple editions, we're kind of trying to keep in sync as much as possible, so that people. So that the core users still get new software all the time. So we're trying to keep those differences down, but we're trying out new stuff as well. And sometimes that'll go out into core first.
Opsview uses MySQL for its backend database, right? Is that the only database it supports, or can you like put in other ones like Postgres or Oracle or other database flavors?
We only support MySQL at the moment, but we are working at trying to abstract that away. There's actually two main databases that are used by Opsview Core. There's the configuration database, and that is in MySQL. And then there's the runtime database, which is also a MySQL one. The runtime database was it historically used to be populated via another project called NDO Utils, which was taking the Nagios status information and putting that into the MySQL database. And we've made a whole bunch of improvements around that, and changed some of the architecture so that it worked asynchronously from the monitoring engine. And that one, unfortunately, was like written in C, and it was making very specific MySQL kind of statements. So what we did was we rewrote that portion. We did that in Perl. It was actually one of our community members, Alan Watinji, who kind of prototyped it first. He tried this out in Perl, and he was saying that he got great performance improvements. So based on that, we kind of did a bit more research, did a proof of concept of it, and we also found that actually, using Perl DBI, we were getting much better performance from updating that database as well. And we did a whole whole range of optimizations using NYT-prof to try to tell us where all the hotspots of the code were. So we've rewritten that portion, and since we're now using DBI and trying to use more ANSI SQL as well in the process, we think that this is going to help with the move over Postgres. So we want to be able to support different database engines, and I think that was one step that we did back in May, I think, that we released it to the community to try that out. So at the moment, it is MySQL only, but we kind of have long-term plans to try to move to other database systems as well.
That's great. So going back to Randall's question about the plugins, if someone has written like a whole slew of custom plugins, if they're using Nagios and they've written a whole bunch of custom plugins, how easy is it to take those custom plugins and kind of move them into Opsview?
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have a UI mechanism for this yet, but if you know the copy command, then you can just copy it into the main directory. And what we do is also, we've got a process that looks at that main live plugin directory, and if there's any changes in there, then it will just scan through all the plugins. It will just grab all the help information. So now all that help information gets displayed in the Opsview web interface, so then you can change the arguments that you want to run against that. So it's very easy to just add that in and then create a couple of what we call service checks, which are more definitions around what it is you want to monitor, and then you just associate those to your hosts. So Opsview has this concept of hosts, which is just a list of systems that you're running your things on, and service checks, which is all the list of things that you want to monitor, how you want to monitor, basically in the database it's just a little association with this, which is in the UI just a whole set of ticks that you can just do, and then it will just start monitoring all those bits for you.
Cool. Is it possible to monitor, say, like a Windows server with Opsview?
Yes, you'd need to install a client on the Windows server, and we call it the Opsview agent for Windows, but in the back end it's using NS Client++, which is the most common used Windows agent software, and that one will then from Opsview, from your master server, it will then talk to the Windows host and grab back information about host CPU, memory. Obviously, if it's any network kind of service, then you just need to execute it straight from the Opsview master system.
Cool. What's the most interesting thing you've heard about someone using Opsview to monitor?
I can probably come up with some great examples when I've been on site, I guess. I had one. I went to one customer site actually, and they provide kind of web proxy services that talk to. So they have lots of different locations that all go via one central web proxy server, and what we found was that. What they were telling me was that in Opsview, it's alerting every so often. So can you just change it, please, so that it doesn't alert anymore, because it doesn't look like a problem. And I was looking at the history, and you could see that, yes, it would say that it can't talk to the web server for a little moment, to the proxy server, and then it would recover after a couple of minutes. So it's like, oh, okay, well, Opsview is saying that there's a problem, so I think we should analyze what this is. And it turned out that their web server had some sort of limit. So, I mean, I wasn't an expert in that area, but I spoke to their expert that knew about it. And then when he ran some statistic information against it, he was showing that there was some sort of soft limit that was on the proxy server. So there was no CPU problem, no memory problem, or disk problem that we could tell from Opsview. But it turned out that there was a soft limit that said what the maximum number of sessions were that this proxy server would allow. So once we found that out, we kind of bumped that value up. We then found out that you could just go to a specific web page to get that information. So I wrote a quick little Perl plugin that goes to that web page, pulls out those numbers, returns it back as performance data, and Opsview will automatically graph anything if it's in the correct format. So now they have a graph of information that tells them what the maximum level is, and also what the current session information is, and then they just put an alert in the middle of that so that they'll know when it's starting to breach that. So I think that's a kind of a great example of here's a system which doesn't have Nagios compatible plugin-ness available, but adding someone who knows about Opsview and knows how to create plugins and adding the person who knows about the software, put them together, and then they can just automate that kind of information.
Since we started talking a little bit about clients, I see some pretty impressive case studies and papers on your website. I believe most of those are probably for your commercial product, though. I mean, like the recent, was it MIT just rolled something out big?
Yeah. They've been a customer for a while, actually. I think they've been trying it out in some of their labs, and they've been rolling it out slowly across their entire estate. I think they've been also pushing for it to go into other parts of the MIT business. So it's gone into their central IT, and now they want to push it out to other people that they support as part of the central IT. So these are based on the enterprise, but what we found is a lot of people start using Core, really like it, want to go a bit further, and then they'll come to us for the Pro and Enterprise versions.
And what about scalability? You must not have everybody reporting back or one machine doing all the polling. You must have ways of sort of delegating that out to zones or something?
Yeah, so what we call it distributed monitoring, and what that does is that you still have your Opsview master, which is where you go for your web user interface and where the main configuration database is all held. But you have lots of slave systems, and the slave systems will then do monitoring, usually at a remote data center, to check everything there, and then just passes all the results back up to the master. So it's much lighter on the master because it doesn't do the actual checking itself, but it is doing the aggregation of all the results and getting a global view of that information. We also have a really nice feature where if you can have clustered slaves, so that means that this slave system can have 3 nodes, say, in it, and what we do as part of the Opsview reload process is that we know here's a list of all the things that are meant to be running on those 3 nodes. We'll just split it into 3 fairly equal chunks and send it out to each of those, and then we also work out in a failure scenario which ones will take over. So we work out that if the middle node fails, then these 2 other nodes would have to pick out the other things that are being monitored, so then it shares that workload out. And in fact, the algorithm to work that out is something called set cluster, which is available on CPAN. So we put that on CPAN in order to just work out that clustering algorithm, and so the main logic is in there. Yeah.
So what is the largest thing that you've seen this scaled to?
We've got one customer in the US which have 42 slave systems, so
wow.
They're spreading it out across a lot, and I think they're looking over about 50,000 hosts. I think it is. I'm not quite sure exactly how many, but wow. They're looking at lots of different offices all around the country.
I presume the slave system is not in the Core version?
Correct, yeah. The slave is not in Core.
So how many hosts can I expect to realistically monitor with just the Core version?
With the Core version, I think you can go up to about 250 hosts, but it really depends on what it is you're checking. I mean, if you're checking something that's really heavy, then there's a lot less that you can do. But if you're doing like basic ping checks, then a lot more. So it's really more of a factor of how frequently you're checking things, how complex those checks are. But most people kind of just do a rule of thumb in terms of number of hosts instead.
And are there job openings at your company?
Yes. Are you interested?
Actually, I'm on the last 3 weeks of my contract here, but anyway, I'm sure you could use a good Perl hacker somewhere, yes.
We're always looking for good Perl hackers. Most of the development happens in the UK, so that's done down in Reading. But we are looking at telecommute kind of work as well. So I tend to work from home, so we're kind of open to that. It depends on the person, really. We've also been working with the Pearl Thames Valley mongers, because Oliver Gorwitz, who is the leader of that, he was trying to revive that. And since we're kind of got this Perl presence in Reading, we decided to work with them. So I've given a couple of talks at their meetings, and we regularly host their events that are every 3 months or so.
And are you obviously at the scale where you're probably having at least a big presence in conferences or have your own conferences already? So which of those is it?
No, we haven't done any conferences yet. We're kind of still going around to other people's conferences at the moment. But yeah, I'll have to pitch the idea about having a conference.
There you go. And we're almost out of time. Is there anything I haven't asked you that you want to make sure our audience is aware of?
No, I think one thing you were mentioning was about like self-healing scripts that you were interested in earlier. So, you know, that's also something that is available in Core. You know, these are hooking into what are called event handlers, so that if there are changes that are made on the system, you can run these event handlers that will, you know, restart your web server if you really want. So that is, you know, more features that are available in Core.
Cool. All right. Well, I really enjoyed this presentation of Opsview. Oh, wait, I've got to ask my two questions. I better know which one. The first one is, what's your favorite scripting language?
Mine has to be Perl.
Yay, one from my side. Yay. And favorite text editor?
Unfortunately, I have to jump on so many VMs. I just use Vi in order to make sure it's the same across everywhere. But
1 point out of 2. Yes. 1 point out of 2. That's good. That's great. So I want to thank you, Tan Vuon, for coming on and talking to us about Opsview. I found it really fascinating. Thank you.
No problem. All
right. That was Tan Vuon, one of the Opsview product architects. So what do you think, Gareth?
I mean, I always like to see when commercial companies take an open source project and commercialize it in a good way, where they've done it and they're contributing back to the community and they're supporting the community. So I like what they're doing, and it sounds like they're a good company and they got a good product.
Yeah, and it sounds like too that they have you know, the core product is, you know, robust enough and busy enough that you can get started with it. And then, you know, by the time you have 150 machines, my God, okay, if you're not making money with that, what are you doing? I mean, it sounds like a business. So at that point, you should be able to afford the next step up and get full support, and also get some of the other nice things like auto discovery and the stuff that's in the next layer there. Of course, I'm actually. I'm going to have to channel Simon Phipps for a moment because he's not here and kind of go, open car. Anyway, but that's okay. I guess I'll just stop there. Just listen to any of the 72 shows that Simon's been on before about his actual objections to that, because it's sort of echoed every time we have somebody on that's got an open core product. But I like it. I like that you're using Catalyst. I used Catalyst a few times in the last few projects I've been on. And I like that they've got, you know, finally you've got something that's like Nagios, but doesn't require editing all those stupid text files. Because what I would do is I would edit the text file. This is what I've been doing a lot for my Nagios setup. I edit the text file, and then I restart Nagios, and it's a syntax error. I'm like, okay, let's try this again. Edit it again, restart. Okay, syntax error again. Or it wouldn't work the way I would expect it to. So I'm kind of liking that they have a web interface for that. Anything else?
Yeah. I mean, it almost sounds like they've taken the ideas that a lot of people have done on their own to kind of get around Nagios's, I wouldn't say limitations, but quirks, and they've made it a lot easier. Like you said, you don't have to deal with the text files anymore.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, speaking of upcoming guests, that's my awkward transition for the week. That's so awkward when I do it kind of like literally. I should actually do some sort of weird transition to get back to the way I used to do it. But hey, it's my show. I do whatever way I want to. Okay, we do have next week we have Kaltura, which is a video production delivery system. So it's basically for managing videos, producing videos, delivering them in a YouTube style framework, so that you can get videos to where they need to go. That should be really interesting. We've actually chatted with them at OSCON a few times, but never actually on the show. SaltStack. We had SaltStack on a couple of years ago, and there's been some huge number of updates to it. Lots and lots of new protocols and stuff. One of the things I found interesting was that after I interviewed Thomas Hatch about Salt, I said, is the wire protocol compatible with Perl? And he goes, well, no, it's Python pickling. And the next release of Salt had a language-independent wire protocol. So I'm pretty happy about that. I thought, hey, maybe it had something to do with that. I don't know. So they've made it more cloudy. They've made it more scalable. All sorts of things are looking really interesting for that. So I'm glad we could bring them back on. We've got Clockwork, which are language and tools for process control if you're managing and monitoring systems and wanting to make sure they go in the proper state and stuff. Actually, I don't know. I'm just making that up. I'm just trying to remember what it is I read about on the website. We have just added 4 new shows to the calendar. Campfire Manager. Campfire Manager is something to manage meetups like OggCamp, where you have a bunch of participants and you have to register to get on there. And then even at the place, you've got like, you want to do this sort of like, like OggCamp, basically, they all submit talk ideas and they get voted on and rearranged and stuff. So that's kind of cool. And actually, for the co-host for that show will be Dan Lynch, which is one of the guys that's producing OggCamp. And so he's really familiar with Campfire Manager. So it'll be fun to talk with that. OpenWRT, which is a Linux for embedded home gateways and routers. This is a Linux distro that you can flash onto your home routers and actually have a full Linux access. You could have like a firewall of your own control. You can run, border protocols, things like that. So it'd be fun. Yasi or Yasi, I don't know how to pronounce this. This one's intriguing. It's a search engine for internet or internet. So you can, in a cooperative way, create your own Google, but obviously it'll take a while to get that all planned. But most of this is for doing intranet. So if you ever wanted sort of a Google-ish-like internal solution, Yasi is open source and does that. And finally, this one I just added. I'm really intrigued by this. I'm really happy we got him on the show. Wireshark. It's the wire protocol analyzer. It's been around for many years. It used to be called Ethereal, but they had to change the name because of a trademark issue. And so, but we're going to be talking TCP/IP stack. Maybe we'll get Steve Gibson in on this one because that's going to be fun, talking about everything that Wireshark does. I'm still continuing to fill in on Q4. So I've sent out a bunch of mail the last couple of days, and I got a couple bites. That's how we got some of these new ones in. You can go to the big spreadsheet at twit.tv/floss, linked from there anyway, and find out who we have on our short list. If there's a project that you would like to have on that list, but is not on that list, please have the project leader email me. That's the fastest way to get them onto the show. Okay, we have a live chat room. We took some questions from the chat room. That's at live.twit.tv. We normally tape 8:30 a.m. Pacific time on Wednesdays. Not always, though, so go to the spreadsheet and we'll have exact times and also see whether we have the show on or off. You can follow me. Follow us on Floss Weekly on Google+. I try to announce new guests there all the time and also pre-announce today's show. You can follow me at Merlin, M-E-R-L-Y-N, on Twitter, and Identica. No, not Identica anymore because that went away. Well, anyway, more importantly, follow me on Google+ as Randall L. Schwartz. Next week, I actually have a double gig. I'm going to be both hosting Floss Weekly, and then immediately following right into that, I am one of the guests on TNT. So that's the show that normally tapes immediately after us on this network. That's Tom. Tom's going to kill me for not remembering his last name. Tom Merritt, and the rest of the crew. Yeah, he's going to kill me now. He's in the chat room. He's going to be like, what the hell, Randall? Anyway, so I'm a guest on that show next week. We're going to actually do a little bit of preview of the stuff we're going to be covering at DragonCon together. So it'll be a lot of fun too. Just a personal word here, since I get to plug everything I want to plug. I'm actually coming to the end of my 9-month contract here at NAMI Media, so you won't be seeing this background behind me for more than a couple more weeks. If you have Pearl contracting work anywhere on the West Coast, or actually anywhere in the world, as long as I can telecommute, I'd appreciate about 6 to 8 weeks of work before I start getting into my next cruise and Christmas season. So if there's some short or medium project I can do either remotely or perhaps on site, please let me know, merlin@stonehenge.com. That's my personal plug for that. Sorry for the slight commercial stuff, but hey, I put a lot of time into the show. Anyway, so Gareth, what do you want to plug today?
I'll plug Scale again, since I plugged it last time. I don't have anything else super interesting. So Scale will be happening once again, February 2014. The website, I can't remember the date, so I'm not even going to try. It's sometime in February, like the third weekend. So, but the information will be on the website, SoCalLinuxExpo.org. So hopefully the call for papers will be out soon. And yeah.
Well, I hope to pitch some sort of talk, or at least I'll cover it as press for Floss Weekly again. That'll be fun. Cool. Yeah, that's great. I always look forward to the scales that I can go to, because sometimes I can't go to them as well. Anyway, I think that's all we've got to do today. So without further ado, we will see you all again next week on Floss Weekly.